So our next speaker will continue the discussion on solid waste management and community connection, and also the connection between climate change and energy generation. Maitet, Ms. Diokno is a partner from the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, or more commonly known as FES, holds a degree in economics from the University of Philippines and a master degree in economics from the London School of Economics. Her passion is in the field of economics has brought her to look into matters of power shortages from the economic point of view. Her article, published in the Manila Times in March 2010, entitled "Power Shortage, Real, Contrived, or God-Given," shows her perspective of power crisis, which often strikes the Philippines. She's a researcher at the core and often uses business and organizational development, skill, strategic planning, and project evaluation in her publications and proposals. Maitet?
Okay. I've done a lot of work also on power sector issues, and FES, which has a number of partner organizations in the Philippines, organized a tour to Germany for a group of us from Malaysia, Japan, Korea, and the Philippines to study Energiewende in Germany, the transition towards renewable energy. So it's been an interesting experience for us. First, where I come from, this is my company, Pilipinas Ecofiber Corporation. It's a social enterprise that processes fiber from coconut husks, which traditionally we simply burn it for cooking or we throw it. And it ends up on the shores, it ends up clogging the culverts in towns and cities, or it ends up in the river. Anywhere but not in your backyard. Most Filipinos are unaware that there is value in this basura. It's our Tagalog word for waste. And the applications of the fiber and the dust, because when you process the husk, you have fiber and you have dust. It's quite wide-ranging, from industrial, horticultural, geotechnical engineering, green architecture, organic agriculture, and even possibly energy. Here, that's the coconut husk, the outer end. Everyone uses the meat, the water, the shell, but the fiber, which comes from the husk, is generally simply thrown away. And when you pass that through a machine, a third of it comes out as long fibers, and the rest comes out as dust, coir dust, or coco peat is what we call, which is actually an established substitute for the peat moss, which usually comes from, I think, North America and Europe, and which is, I think it's banned now because it's not a renewable resource. Unlike coco peat, which every 45 days, the coconut tree bears fruit, so coco peat is a good renewable resource as well. This is the waste value cycle that our product, the coco peat, can actually support. So from a traditional waste, we use this as our raw material, and we come up with fiber and dust. And the dust is, we think of the fiber more as our product than the dust. But in the Philippines, where we have a lot of hog and poultry raisers, they're starting to use this as animal bedding. And after several weeks, the coco peat, when mixed with the waste of the animal, can actually be prepared for cultivation. So we have one buyer in the past who was doing this, doing organic animal raising, and also using the coco peat mixed with the animal waste for organic agriculture. And this is one of the photographs that he shared with us. So you can go from something that was waste into something that has value. That's the point that I'd like to share with you. The other uses of our products, of our fiber, you can make your garden grow with it. I have a friend who has this beach property, which she couldn't grow a garden until she put the nets made out of cocoa fiber. Because it's very sandy soil, she was able to make her garden grow with it. Oh, sorry, let me go. Anyway, and then we have a buyer who uses the fiber for wastewater treatment. We have a young startup business of students, university students. They're using the fiber as insoles in shoes that they will be exporting to Canada and selling online. And supposedly when you use these as insoles, because they absorb water and gases well, the odor from your feet can be controlled. In fact, when you use coco peat as animal bedding, you can control the odor from the hogs, for example, and the flies and all that kind of thing can be controlled better. Oops, it keeps moving. Let me go back. Previous. Yeah, one more. No, doesn't want. Sorry. Yeah, our coconuts are, okay. Our coconuts are also used to, and logs are used to rehabilitate rivers and used in slope protection. And these applications, unfortunately, they're better known outside the Philippines where there are no coconuts than in our own country. But our government is now starting to use the nets for slope protection and erosion control in the road construction and in irrigation and river infrastructure, which is good for us. We do export occasionally to the US trays made out of the cocoa fiber, which they use in the green roof, and also now in the Philippines where they're starting to use it to make green walls. So it's a nice way of thinking how to use waste. And then our own factory has waste of its own. Some of our stitched mats, we have to use what we call the sacolin or PP sack as lining. And even that has, we have leftovers from that. So what Ms. Akiko was telling us of also minimizing your own waste, we pass on our waste to a cooperative that makes this PP sack, what we say, retaso or leftovers, into eco bags or reusable bags for individuals to use. So I think that when you're talking of waste, sustainable waste and sustainable energy, I think there are common underlying principles, and that's why it's good to link the two. No? Waste management begins with defining what is waste, because traditionally what you think of as waste, or someone's waste may be value to someone else, like us. The waste of the coconut husk is value, is the raw material that is value to us. So looking at your waste with new eyes is always the challenge when you're talking of sustainable waste management. And I think segregating is a headache, but it's essential to being able to reuse and recycle. And now there's a new word called upcycling, which I think is also very interesting. You transform waste into new things, into new uses that are not what the initial original intended use is. So similarly, renewable energy also calls for a shift in consumer demand management and in recognizing what is truly sustainable, what are your truly sustainable energy resources. We've always taken for granted the sun and the wind, never realizing how much energy can be taken from that. And in the Philippines, we have all the laws you can think of to support renewable energy, organic agriculture, etc. But the government's still pushing coal. It's still supporting GMOs. You know, it's sad, but I think because it takes more than a law. It takes a real shift in how you look at things and how you see what is valuable to you and to the future generations. But I think in both areas of sustainable waste management and sustainable energy, community participation is necessary for these to succeed and to become effective. We saw that also in Germany when FES protested there in March. We were brought to a town that is 90% of the energy comes from wind, and the balance comes from solar and biomass. And when the mayor of the town tried to do that, initially everyone said it couldn't be done, but he showed that it is in fact possible. Waste and modernization, I think this is something that was shown to us also from the experience of Japan. As cities modernize, the waste grows. And especially, I think, with the rise in the use of plastics, this invention has really created havoc in many of our cities here in Asia and the Pacific. Even remote, impoverished rural areas and shorelines get polluted by these products. And fortunately, the growing trend in the Philippines is for city and municipal governments to ban the use of plastic bags. So Filipinos are slowly learning to use eco bags, but we're still not learning as fast as we should on how to segregate. Not everyone is. Very few towns are actually doing this. There have been moves to set up incineration plants in the Philippines, but there's strong opposition to it. We have a very strong environmental group. So the trend is still, because of that strong opposition, the trend has not been to find more sustainable waste management methods. It's just how do you find landfills which are also unsustainable? And Metro Manila, which is the biggest city in the Philippines and also generates the most waste, has there are serious problems with toxic wastes, and I think the very thin protective walls of the landfills that could be already polluting your water sources. So, but there have been a few local governments in the Philippines that have successfully demonstrated the viability of, composting, doing vermiculture with a biodegradable waste, and also recycling. There are a few examples, but they seem to be, unfortunately, more the exception than the rule. But they show us the light. They show us that it's possible. What's the waste to energy? I think this one, if we can make this link, and if we can make this link happen, then I think we're solving many problems of modernizing societies. And I think that's a challenge that for all of us, and it would be good if we could meet or find a way to overcome this challenge. But in the Philippines, we had one farm which was very popular in all countries, China, that had 35,000 heads of pig, and they used biogas. They used the gas from the waste of the pig to generate electricity. And the founder of that plant and the Filipino the businessman who thought of it, really, you used to say the pig waste is gold. To him, it was gold, because I think it saved the farm quite a bit in energy costs. At the same time, in the Philippines, we have typhoons throughout many typhoons in 1 year. In fact, I think there's one in the Philippines right now. And because of that, you get outages. You lose your electricity from the grid. The electricity from the grid is lost. And there was a time when there was one of these great typhoons in our history, where this farm was the only place that had electricity, and they were the only ones who had the light in that area. So the biogas was not just used for energy. They also used at some point when the waste is degraded. You can actually use it as an ingredient in making the feeds for the hogs. The sad story, though, is that this farm has closed. It's been an example and a shining example of what you can do, but I think the descendants of the Filipino businessman who thought of it weren't as keen on it, and then the Chinese were so excited they kept visiting it until someone brought in the foot and mouth disease, and the pigs got sick. Anyway, so in the Philippines, we also have a lot of renewable energy potential. And we grow rice and we have sugar. And the potential from these two crops alone is quite big. From the bagasse, the sugar waste, when the sugar cane passes through the milling process, there's waste from this that's called bagasse, and you can use it to power turbines. And they're estimating the potential from this to be 540 megawatts every year. From rice hull, the potential is about 360 megawatts. Now, the Philippines doesn't, our peak demand in the Philippines is still very low. I think now it may be just about 10,000 megawatts. But if you're looking at rural areas or local areas where this waste can be found, I think 1 megawatt can mean a lot. Can provide electricity to a lot of households already. And in the Philippines, I don't know if you're aware that there's 40% of the poor do not have electricity in their homes. And in some of the poorer areas in the Philippines, like the Bangsamoro region, up to 70% will not have electricity. So finding a renewable energy option is not just a nice, fancy thing to do. It's essential for providing electricity to poor areas. It's an important developmental task. But of course, the potential of potential energy from rice hull and sugar waste is not as much as when you look at hydropower in the Philippines, which is quite big. Geothermal, I think we have a lot of volcanoes. We're in the Ring of Fire, so we have a lot of energy from geothermal. And of course, wind and solar energy, which are still very undeveloped in the Philippines today. What we have today are hydropower and geothermal energy. Biomass is a possibility, but it's also not as developed as it should be. But because we have the most expensive electricity in Asia, and I think we're probably in the top 5 most expensive in the world, in the Philippines. I know our electricity is more expensive in the Philippines than in Germany. It makes sense for businesses or for agri-based businesses to look at agricultural waste as fuel for your post-harvest needs, like for drying your crops, for processing the crops into further stages of food development. So, but also in as far as there's only one caveat. It's not. It came out of the box. One caveat that I can say is, of all of the renewable ways of generating electricity, it seems it's turning out that biogas is also more expensive than, for example, solar or wind. Can you see this? I think not. But this is a table that came from a German institute, research institute, one of these think tanks. They compared generation cost of electricity from nuclear power to coal, the two kinds of coal, the black coal and the brown coal, from gas, from wind onshore, wind offshore, solar PV, biomass, and hydropower. And it's turning out that the most expensive is nuclear. And I think because we're talking of waste, I think that's also something that we should think about going into industries or even power systems. If you don't know what to do with the waste, which is exactly the situation for nuclear power, why go into it? No, any industry, even any basic business or industry, if you don't know what to do with the waste, reconsider going into this section. But in here, it's turning out that biomass is more expensive than hydro and solar PV, okay? And it's even wind, onshore and offshore wind, it's also more expensive. This is based on European costs and at different levels of load. So when you're talking of only 1,000 full load hours per year, biomass is actually wind, offshore, and biomass are actually close to nuclear power. But when you're talking of 4,000 and 8,000 full load hours, their cost falls in comparison to nuclear. So I think the message I got from Germany when we went there was wind and solar energy is now comparable with coal. And the most expensive is nuclear. The most unsustainable and most expensive electricity is nuclear. Biomass is between wind and solar and nuclear. This is my last slide. I think linking waste to energy is crucial. But I think there are many challenges that remain. There are some technological challenges. A lot of technological challenges remain. But I think it requires more than a simple technological solution. But also I think I'm finding out, every time you think you have a technological solution, it creates a new problem somewhere. So you always have to think things through and very carefully. But this also will require community organization and participation, not just on the waste side. It's also on the renewable energy side, and I'm hoping our next speaker can explain that more clearly. It requires us to look out of the box. And it also requires us to look beyond ourselves for all of this, for waste and for energy. And it's requiring us to look not only beyond ourselves in the present, but beyond ourselves in the future, the next generations. And it requires a healthy mix of political, socio-cultural, and environmental change, which is always tough. So, maraming salamat po. I hope I spelled this correctly. Terima kasih.